Hi, this is Don at donallphin.com. We're going to watch a video today taken at Lake Powell early in the spring, March 4th or 5th. I'm thinking of 2017. As you can see in the title, it says Jerkbaits, Jigs, and Drop Shots. I'm doing a voiceover just because my audio in the GoPro did not work that day. So bear with me and let's take a look at this video. I was about 35 to 40 miles north of Bullfrog at this time, and as the video starts, you're going to see me hooking up with a real nice largemouth. I'm throwing a pointer 128 suspending jerkbait. I call it the Big Galoot, and does really well in the early spring, particularly. Catches all kinds of fish, but this happened to be a 3 3/4 pound largemouth, and you'll notice that as I show it to the camera, I leave the deck for a few moments. I'm actually practicing for a tournament that's coming up in a couple of weeks from there, and so I wanted to weigh and measure each of the fish that I caught just to know what I would have weighed for my 5 largest bass over 12 inches in length, and so that's why I leave, and as soon as I have measured those and have weighed them, I release them immediately back in the water. Now notice that I'm actually pivoting between two sides of a point. If you look straight ahead, you can see that there's a cove back in there, as the front of the boat shows there beyond my fish finder. But I'm not going back into the backs of the cove at this point because, quite frankly, the water temperature is 48 degrees. And with 48-degree water temperature, you really don't expect the fish to be back in the coves where they would spawn, where they would do other kinds of things. They're going to be in the main lake, or they're going to be on the points. And so throwing the jerkbait out across these points that I come to is really one of the very, very best ways to see if the fish are active in the water column. And I'm looking at my finder, and I found some fish there, and that's the reason that I'm throwing this jerkbait. But if you'll notice, I'm using this jerkbait to entice a bite. So 3 or 4 real quick jerks down will get that suspended jerkbait down to 5 to 8 feet. And then from then on, I'm just looking at the structure that's down under the water. We've got probably 3 to 5 feet of visibility today, and so I'm bringing that around the structure and by the structure, and I do it all the way back to the boat, as you'll be able to see here in just a minute. You cast it out, and I'm casting to specific targets, and then I just bring it back slowly, pause it, wait, continue to do so, almost to the actual time that I lift it out of the water. It's really a fun way to fish. You can cover a lot of water, but in this case, I found some fish, so now I'm just trying to get them to bite. And there I go. Just as soon as I was bringing that jerkbait up out of the water, this fish jumped up and grabbed it. Now, by the way, this is the first smallmouth that I've caught, in this particular trip. Not expecting them to be too active because, quite frankly, it was, the water temperature under 50 degrees, and so you don't kind of think that the smallies are going to be quite as active as they ended up being that day. So once again, this fish happened to go just a little bit over 3 pounds, and so that's 2 fish, and one was 2 3/4, and this one was just a little bit over 3 pounds, and so I was off to a pretty good start. And notice in the background, you can see that I'm now swinging back to where I had caught that fish, coming across that point to a little bit to the right of where you can see my trolling motor and my fish finder. And so bringing that parallel to the bank across that point was where I picked up that last fish. So now that that's taken care of, now we can I'm probably going to cast back, back to the right, back across that point again, to see if there are any more active fish right actually off of the edge of that point, maybe in 10 to 12 feet of water. Sure enough, there's another fish. This fish isn't quite as large. It was a little over 2.5 pounds, not quite as large as the other, but as you see it get closer to the camera, it's a very, very nice sized smallmouth bass, very healthy. All these fish were, believe it or not, eating crawdads. So now, obviously, I'm going back into the sun because each one of these points, this is not exactly the same point. This is a point probably another quarter of a mile to the north of the point that we were just on. But I noticed some other fish on the finder. So what did I do? I dropped my jerkbait, even though you're looking into the sun and can't see it too well, and I picked up a drop shot, a shad-shaped worm, 18-inch leader, about a 1/4 ounce kanji tungsten drop shot weight. And I'm looking at the finder, dropping my bait right on top of the fish to see if they're active. And that happens, quite frankly, very often. If you're watching your finder, take advantage of opportunity, see a fish come into the finder, drop down and see if you can catch it. Since I'm practicing, I don't really have any schedule for the day, so I'm just as happy doing that as I am throwing my jerkbait. And there's my first drop shot fish. And the thing that's most interesting to me about this this particular segment is that these fish were all basically the same size, within about a 1/2 pound of one another. So 2.5, almost 3 pounds. Almost all of those fish were that way. And notice that I caught the first fish was a largemouth, but the rest of these fish have been really, really nice smallies. I actually caught a few more fish that were out of camera. I just didn't realize that I'd lost a battery. So I actually caught several more largemouth, but these fish here have mostly been, especially the drop shot fish, have been smallmouth bass, but very, very active for being 48-degree water. If you'll notice, I'm almost dead sticking the drop shot. A lot of times I wiggle the tip and kind of entice the bite that way. Did not have to do that on this particular day. All I had to do was drop down to them and let it sit. And since it's an 18-inch leader, then you know that my worm is going to be 18 inches above the bottom. And that's what those fish wanted on that particular day. Air temperature today was that particular day was probably in the mid-40s, but traveling up the lake, you wanted every stitch of clothing that you owned on. So I've already taken off my coat, and I've still got my coveralls, so to speak, but they've got insulation. And although it looks like a bright sunny day down at Lake Powell, trust me, it was not the warmest of days. And with 48-degree water temperature, you realize it's still basically winter conditions, even though it was in the first few days of March 2017. Now, I don't know whether you noticed that, but see, I've swung again to the right so that I'm now fishing the opposite side of the point, but I'm still fishing the point, and there's the next fish. For some of you conservationists wondering if I'm hurting the fish by what I'm doing, this is looking a lot worse than it actually is. The fish are flopping around a little bit, but they're extremely healthy. It's cold enough that there's absolutely no damage to the fish, and they're just off and running. If I was fishing Major League Fishing, that'd be a fish landing violation. It'd also be a fish release violation. But since I'm not fishing MLF, I'm not worried about it. I very rarely damage a fish when I fish, and so I do take pride in making sure that everything's fine with them. I don't like using a net oft times when I'm fishing jerkbaits, because they, regardless of your net, they get all tangled up in the net. Sometimes that's more damaging to the fish than just allowing them to flop around a little bit on the carpet. I turned on the video here just to show you that the jerkbaits do attract other fish species, and I caught several stripers that day as well. That one happened to be a smaller one, but I didn't record many of those. Now, during the day, the water temperature moved from 48 to 51 degrees. And as I told you, I'm between 35 and 40 miles north of Bullfrog right now. But I eventually worked my way all the way down the lake, and I got all the way back into Bullfrog area where I launched the boat. I found a couple of coves there that were protected, and I started fishing a jig. Once again, I caught several fish that did not make it to the camera, but as this switches positions here in a few minutes or a few moments on the video, you're going to see that I've changed my scenery and have a lot different background by way of rock, and I start fishing a slick rock situation. So when you're practicing, you always want to try different areas to see where the fish were holding. And to be honest with you, I did not find any fish even close to the numbers in that school that were on those 5 or 6 points that you just watched me fish. Now, what I've been doing here is dragging my half-ounce jig all the way down from 20 to 25 feet, all the way along this slick rock, and there was the bite right there underneath where that big boulder's coming off. And as I pull this fish in, it happened to be the biggest fish of the day, just almost at 4 pounds. And not quite, but almost, and it just was one of those thunk, you feel the bite, and there it is. This is the last fish that I have on film for today. I wanted to thank you for watching, to tell you that overall I weighed close to 15 pounds, maybe a little bit over for the day, of the 5 largest fish over 12 inches, and that helped me prepare for a tournament that I fished 2 weeks after that.